What's up everyone? Welcome back to Padhai Logic. Listen up. If your data warehouse data mining exam is in a few days or literally tomorrow morning and you're panicking, take a deep breath. I have got you covered. You just landed on the absolute ultimate cheat code video to ace this paper. We are here not to just read the boring copy pasted textbook definitions that make you sleepy. No way. In this video, you are going to hyper focus on the exact questions that the examiner loves to repeat year after year. By the time you finish this video, concepts like three-tier architecture, star versus snowflake schema, and the KDD process will be permanently burned into your brain. So drop the panic, grab a notebook, smash that subscribe button, and let's crash this exam together. Let's get it. So without wasting any time, let's move forward and discuss our PYQ radar for the Unit 1. So you see, Unit 1 is the base of data warehouse where we understand the very basic terminologies and concepts. So the PYQ radar tells us that there is question about three-tier architecture of data warehouse. Okay, so now team, we are the architects. Suppose you are building a 3-story club. Okay, so the basement is where all the heavy inventory is stored. Then there is the main floor where the bartenders mix the drinks and there's VIP lounge. And at the top is where the guests enjoy the view. So this is exactly, we will be talking about data warehouse 3-tier architecture. And you can actually score a perfect mark in this if you have it in the exam. Then we'll be talking about the compelling need of data warehouse. So when we talk about data, you would see that why we are not questioning that we can use a normal database, we can use a normal DBMS system to handle the analytics of a company. Why are we spending millions of rupees or millions of money on data warehouse? So we will be busting the myth that the database and a data warehouse are the same thing. I am going to give you the ultimate high scoring comparison table that will make you examine and fall in love with your answer sheet. So let's get into it. Then we talk about the most common transformation in ETL process. Consider ETL as a data laundry. So what happens, the raw data coming straight out of the live business app is absolutely full of typos, missing codes, and duplicate junk. So if you feed that straight into your analytics engine, what will happen? What will happen? Your reports will be complete garbage. That is why you need laundry. That is why you need ETL process. We'll get into it. Then you see there is a question about various components of data warehouse. Okay, let's be the mechanical engineer. If we pop open an data warehouse machine, what will you see? There will be actual engine parts that making it spin. So what are these engine parts? We'll break down in the components of data warehouse. We will be talking about which parts are actually working to help the data warehouse run smoothly. Okay, then you see that there is a question about different between three main types of data warehouse usage. Okay, data warehouse is used at multiple places. So which are the places which actually brings the change, where the data warehouse is used instead of other databases or other types of data storage. Okay, then we'll see about basic, what is data warehouse, what are the features that makes the data warehouse different from other repositories. All right, without wasting any time, let's get to the main point. Let's understand what is data warehouse with a quick example. Imagine you run a massive grocery store chain. Every second, a customer is buying milk, a cashier is scanning an item, and or a refund is being processed. So to keep things moving fast, your cash registers use a very specific system that only cares about today's live transactions. But what happens when the CEO, that is you, wants to know how much milk did we sell in December over the last 5 years so we can predict next month's inventory? If you try to run that massive 5-year calculation directly on the live cash register, the system will freeze. The customer will get angry as well. Plus, the cash register doesn't even store 5-year-old receipt because it needs to delete that in order to stay fast. That is why the company builds data warehouse. Think of a data warehouse as a digital library that sits completely separate from your daily operation. Instead of handling these live transactions, it automatically collects the data from your different systems. Like, you suppose you have a cash register, you also have a website, and you also have a HR department, and there must be shipping trucks as well. So you need to store this data, you need to clean it up and store it safely for years. This is where data warehouse comes into being. It has one primary job: to help managers and executives look at the past trend. Look at how much you have sold, what is the trend, to make smart business decisions for the future. That is what data warehouse does. So it is a centralized repository. Okay, of what? Centralized repository of what? Of integrated historical and subject oriented data collected from various sources, like I explained it to you, and it is used for purpose of analysis, reporting, and strategic decision making. All right, so what is integrated? When we talk about integrated, it means that our data speaks one consistent language. Your website might record a customer gender as M for male and F for female. Okay. And your store app might record it as 1 or 0, male 1, 0 female. And if you mix them together, it will be a mess. Somewhere male would gender column, male would stand for M, and somewhere it would be stand for 0. And male would stand for M and 1, and female would stand for F and 0. There will be mess. So before data enters data warehouse, it goes through a cleaning process that standardize everything. So this means integration. That means our database has a one consistent language. It is integrated. Then we talk about historical. What does historical means? It means that it is not just storing the present data. It is the repository for storing all the data that has been entered into the system once. It will have time stamped into our data warehouse. So it contains everything, right? And then it is subject oriented. By subject oriented, it means that data warehouse ignores the action and organize data by major subject. For example, a cash register. A cash register is organized by action. What we do in cash register, there is scan, pay, and receipt, right? But how will you store this data of scanning, paying, and getting the receipt? For example, customer, product, and sale. This will be the subject. Customer, all the customers who are paying the bill, right? Then product is what you are scanning, and sales is what the customer had paid. So this is how we provide subject to our data, and we store it in that form. And it becomes incredibly easy for the analyst to find everything about specific product without digging through the millions of individual receipts. That is why it is subject oriented. And these three name of integrated, historical, and subject oriented are also the feature of data warehouse. That is why I explained it to you in detail, because when we'll be studying features, these three would be in that. All right, now let's move forward and discuss that data warehouse is an informational environment. Okay, it is an informational environment which does what? It provides integrated and enterprise view of data, makes the current and historical information available, support the strategic decision making, okay, and also keep the information consistent. There is consistent information, there is no lagging in between, and it allows the analytical processing without affecting the operational system. What we did right now, I just explained it to you, and we have just detailed it out, right? You just have to get the gist of what is happening. You just need to get to in your knowledge. You just need to understand what the words really mean, and you can always frame it out, right? You just frame these out from these 3 words that I explained it to you. Okay, so what is the main purpose of data warehouse? Main purpose is to transform existing operational data into meaningful strategic information. So what we are doing when we are storing the historical data, we are not just keeping up past records. We are doing trend analysis. We are finding out where the sale was, what the sale was, and how can we increase it. Basically, we are using it to create better decisions, better business making decisions. That is why it is the main purpose. Okay, benefits of data warehouse. It is designed to perform well with the aggregated queries, because there is large amount of data. Finding out the sum and finding out the products of everything would be very easy. Okay, the structure of data warehouse is easier. So it is very easy to understand, to navigate, and to find out what is standing where in the data warehouse once you understand how to use it. And data warehouse enables queries that cut across different segments of company. Like I told you, we can store different types of data from various departments, from HR, from sales, from import, export, and everything. It is stored in one data warehouse, and we are using that to cut through the different segments. And if you want to see which was the HR which was responsible for most of the employment rate of people in our company, how would you know that? You would need the data from HR department and also from the employees that are working under you. That is why we need a data warehouse, which is a central repository where we store all the data. Let's move forward and discuss about the features of data warehouse. Okay, so like I told you, first would be integrated enterprise-wide data. Like I told you, we just have to make that data consistent and remove the duplicates and provide a unified data view. All right, then second is the subject oriented, like we discussed. So it is very important to organize the data around the business subjects. Okay, so that can be used in future analysis as well, not just on operational processes. Then we talk about historical data storage. Okay, it is also known as time variant. So the data warehouse stored large amount of historical data over longer periods. So what is happening? We are storing the past records for trend analysis. Now let's move forward to next feature, that is non-volatile nature. So you must have heard about non-volatile RAM, right? So what is that? There is stable. Even if you switch off your computer, the data would not be lost. So what is happening in data warehouse? It is stable and rarely change once loaded. Once you enter the data, it ensures that there is reliability of report and it maintains the stable environment. Okay, and it prevents the accidental modification. There is only read only system. Read only. You cannot edit, you cannot delete the data once it enters the data warehouse. Then there is decision support. Okay, one of the feature of data warehouse, that is primary purpose of the data warehouse, is to support the managerial and strategic decision making, and it helps the organization to make informed decisions. Then we move forward and discuss about separation from operational system. Major feature of data warehouse is that it operates separately. So all the daily transactions which are happening in your for example, in you have a store, there is daily transaction happening, there is people buying a lot of things, but that is the operational data, because it is happening every day. Data warehouse is different from that. Okay, what it does is it handles the analytical query part, it handles the insights part, not just the raw data part. All right, you really need to understand this, and it improves the efficiency of operational system, because all the data from the operational system is stored in the data warehouse, and it also fasten up the reporting part, the analytical side part. Okay, all right guys, let's look at one of the most absolute repeated question: why on earth do modern companies absolutely need a data warehouse? I mean, think about it. Databases already store data, right? Then why do we need a warehouse? So this question hits your exam. If it does, you just need to list these killer points. Let's break them down so simply that you can write out from your memory without missing anything. So first up is the strategic decision making. First up is strategic decision making. Look, a live store database is built for cashier to just ring a bell, right? You just have to scan for and you just need to have bill at very first so that the customer does not get angry. So that database is not designed to tell a CEO which product made the absolute maximum profit. Okay, for example, you need profit for North India last year. How would you give it from a database? From a simple scan and pay database system, right? That is why we need a data warehouse, because operational systems are designed only for day-to-day transaction, and we need to answer the questions like who get the maximum profit from the northeast Indian region in the past 3 years. That is why we need data warehouse that provides the summarized historical data for strategic decision. The second is the need for integrated data. As discussed already as the major feature of data warehouse, that is why we need data warehouse, right? Number 2, data integrated. In a big company, different departments live in their own isolated worlds. There is sales app, like I told you, having a gender as male, and then there is a software or another app which consider male as an one. I told you this. And then there might be finance team which code it as mm. What would you do in that case? You cannot just combine the data, right? Data warehouse makes it work, all this messy data into one single standardized format data. That is why we need data integration. That is why we need data warehouse. Then we come to the third need, that is need for historical analysis. Already discussed as a feature. Let's just quickly know what it is. So next is the historical analysis. Normal database only care about the right now. Normal data care about the present. But we need, for example, if you change your phone number on an app, the old number is overwritten and gone forever. But business analysts need historical data to track the growth over years. A data warehouse acts as a permanent time capsule that never deletes the past. That is why we need data warehouse. Fourth need, for faster analytical processing. Okay, imagine running a heavy query to calculate 5-year average while a customer is trying to book a live ticket on airline website. Okay, the system will freeze, the app will crash. By moving the analytics to a separate data warehouse, heavy queries run in seconds. You don't have to do it on the same database, so that the customer is able to do his thing very easily. He's able to book the tickets very easily, while you are running the queries on a separate database and you are doing it very easily, very fast and effectively. So this is the example of why we need data warehouse, because we need faster analytical queries as well. Next need is for better decision, for better business intelligence. Okay, with data warehouse comes the need for better business insights. Okay, so modern managers don't want to look at the ugly raw data, right? They want to look at the beautiful dashboards, charts and interactive graphs. So a data warehouse provides that thing. It provides the clean fuel to power those dashboards. That is why we need data warehouse for better business intelligence. We also need data warehouse for consistent and reliable information. Okay, I think you are holding up with me. Are you guys tracking me? All right. After the 6th point, I would be just speaking up the 7, 8, 9 and 10th point, and you will jot down in your notebooks. I would see who is active and who is not. Okay, the 6th point is very simple. that we need a consistent and reliable information. Have you ever seen a corporate meeting where sales head says revenue is 5 crores, but the finance head says it's 4.5 crores? So what happens? Because they are looking at different messy data sheets, that is why there is inconsistency. That is why data is different for both the departments. And we just need a place where we can store the single right information. That is why we need data warehouse, because we are just creating a single version of truth so that everyone works off the exact same validated data. Alright, what is the seventh need? Seventh need is for the trend analysis. If a supermarket wants to know how many sweets to order for Diwali next year, how for example, there is a sweet shop you own and the Diwali is coming up, how would you know how much will be the demand, what exactly was sold last year, that will give you the idea of how much you would need this year? How would you know that? Data warehouse data lets you read that. Okay, the warehouse data lets you read the past consumer waves and to predict the future accurately. That is why data warehouse is needed for the trend analysis. Okay, the eighth point is the need for data mining and advanced analytics. Have you heard of the core subject data mining? It is in our unit 3 exactly. So data mining is the use of machine learning or various algorithms to make, because they are completely useless data, so you need to convert it into a very perfectly organized data so that you can come out with the hidden patterns in the data, so that you can take out what is exactly our data indicating. So all these things are actually part of data mining. You are actually mining, you are actually constructing something out of data, right? So for that you need a data warehouse where all the data is stored. Ninth point is need for improved organizational performance. Okay, so why would we need to improve the organization performance? Because you see, there is no such thing as top management only need a something or. Alright guys, you're doing great. The number 9 is all about organizational performance. That is need for improved organizational performance. So a data warehouse doesn't just look at sales, it also tracks the internal matrices of an company or of an organization. Okay, you would also need a data about your employees, right? Not just how much sales you are producing, how much business you are bringing in. So it allows the top management, it allows the top manager of a company to actually work on the internal machinery as well, to look at the operational delays that are happening, or to also cut the unnecessary cost from a company. So all these decisions are made from a data warehouse. So a data warehouse is also need for a company to organize its organizational performance. Alright, the last need of data warehouse is the need for competitive advantage. Okay, so you see, in modern business world, the fastest company wins. So if you can read the customer trends, spot market drops, and optimize your prices faster than the guy next door, you stay on the top. And data warehouses gives the company that ultimate strategic edge. It helps the company to stay ahead, one step ahead, because they are predicting the future accurately from their data. They are able to predict what changes need to be made in order to move faster from their competition. That is why data warehouse also helps in competitive advantage. Okay, we came in end with the very important topic of compelling need of data warehouse. I hope you understood the concept. Please hit the like button if you did. Let's move on to understand what is the mere difference between data warehouse and a database. Till now you might have a rough idea how they are different from each other, but let's dig deeper. So database is an organized collection of related data. Alright, and it is managed using DBMS. You might have heard of it till now. And it is designed to support daily operations and transaction processing. So like I gave you the example of an grocery store, what is happening when the billing counter on a billing counter where there is processing happening, where there is scan, pay and receipt. What is that data on? It is on database. Alright, because there is insertion of data, there is updates, there is deletion and retrieval. When these operations are occurring, it is obviously a database. Alright, and database is mainly used in this system, OLTP, that is online transaction processing systems. If we talk about data warehouse, now you know what data warehouse is. Try to recall the definition. I hope you are able to do that. So it is a centralized repository of integrated historical and subject oriented data from multiple sources. And why the data warehouse is used? It is used for analysis, reporting and strategic decision making. And where is data warehouse used? It is used in OLAP systems. What is OLAP? OLAP is online analytical processing. So here we are actually taking the insights out of the data. We are performing analysis on the data, finding out what our data is trying to tell, which story our data holds. Alright, so what is happening here? We are using it for BI, forecasting, trend analysis and data mining. So quickly, without wasting any time, let's look at the tabular difference which would be asked in your exam if it might. So first is database definition. I hope it's clear. Okay, so what is the purpose? Purpose of database is the daily transaction processing, whereas data warehouse used for analysis and strategic decision making. These are the key points, guys. Please note down the key points. Alright, so processing type I already told, it is the OLTP. Here there is day-to-day transactions. Okay, day-to-day there is data updated. So it is the online transaction processing, whereas data warehouse is OLAP. OLAP stands for online analytical processing. Data type of data warehouse is current. Okay, there is current operation data, day to day. There is no past data. Where is the past and historical data? It is in the data warehouse. Operations are frequent insert, deletion in database, but in data warehouse, I told you there is only read mode. There is only read mode on the data warehouse. And if you talk about users, there are various different users, but for data warehouse mostly there is managers, analyst and executive. Similarly, you see there is data sources. It is usually for single application, but here is heterogeneous sources. I talked about that there are different departments in an organization and we collect the data from different organization into our data warehouse. So there are heterogeneous data sources, and you see the response time is fast because we need it for our day-to-day transaction. But in data warehouse we might need to it is optimized for analytical queries. Okay, so there is large amount of data, it cannot be slow, it is optimized for the queries. And you see examples, there is banking system, ATM system, but for data warehouse example is BI systems, business intelligence systems. You see the dashboards which are created on millions of data, right? But it is very clean and organized. So that is where data warehouse plays a vital role. And the main goal is that day-to-day operations are performed efficiently, but for data warehouse the main goal is strategic insights from the data, analyzing the trends from the data. Alright, I hope that the difference between data warehouse and database is clean. Pause this video and just recall it again and revise it in your mind and make sure you understand the concept. Here comes the another important topic, that is three-tier architecture of data warehouse. Remember I told you about building a three-story club? That is same. Okay, so first of all you see at the base we have the bottom tier. There is three tier. Okay, bottom tier, middle tier and top tier. So bottom tier, let's talk about the bottom tier. It is the fundamental. Okay, so if our roots are not strong, then the floors would be obviously not strong, right? So it is fundamental and it serves as a foundation where data is initially collected and stored. You see, first we have data from operational databases, external sources, internal sources. Wherever we find the data, the very most fundamental thing comes data in the bottom tier. So this bottom tier, what does it usually, you see here, it is monitoring, administration, data warehouse, data mart. What is exactly this tier? Is typically structured around database server. We have a server over here, okay, and it is commonly an relational database management system. So all the data that is extracted, you see, all the data that is extracted, it is extracted, cleaned, transformed, loaded and refreshed into the data warehouse server. So all this is part of the bottom tier, the roots of our building, right? So what is happening? The ETL process, the data laundry I told you about. The ETL process is happening. We are extracting the data, we are cleaning it, we are transforming it, and we are loading it into the data warehouse server. Alright, so the bottom tier data undergoes into the transformation and it encompasses of all the data inputs. Right, now comes to the middle tier. What happens when the data is cleaned, transformed and loaded into the bottom tier, into the servers? What happens next with the data? We go to the next floor, that is the middle tier. So you see, in the middle tier there is OLAP servers, in the middle tier. What does that mean? So middle tier architecture is where OLAP server resides. I told you what OLAP is. Quickly remind, it is online analytical processing. Alright, so this tier acts as a critical processing layer that manages and enable complex analytical queries. Now the data is loaded into the server. What you want to do with the data? You need to perform some analysis. You need to find out why data shows this trend, why the numbers are up, why the numbers are low. So to perform the analytical query, we go to the OLAP server. So we are making the data ready for analysis and reporting. Okay, and it is designed for high speed analytical processing, right? So it is very high speed. All the processing are running really massively effectively. That is why we use OLAP server in the middle tier. Okay, now we have made ready, data is ready for analysis, and now we are moving to the top tier. What happens in the top tier? It comprises of front end client layer. Okay, so now we want to interact with the stored and processed data in the lower tiers. So this layer includes variety of BI tools and techniques that help us to have easy access of the data, to manipulate the data and to visualize the data, show it to our managers, to our top performers, to the stakeholders, to make better decisions. So this is the 3-tier architecture that we were talking about. So let's dive straight into another massive university favorite exam question about data warehouse components. So think of this architecture as an ultimate machinery that takes chaotic raw data and turns into the pure business gold. So instead of memorizing, let's just understand what is happening in every component. So very first is the source data. You see over here, source data. You see different kind of names, right? So what is happening? This is the where actual journey begins. So the source data is the starting point of the data warehouse. There is data coming from everywhere. You'll see data from billing system, customer CRM, you'll see from messy Excel sheets. So it is raw. Here the data is mismatched, it is chaotic, but without it, data warehouse has nothing to process. So we need data. So it is very essential. Okay, the next layer is the data staging from the data storage. Okay, so from the source data, we move forward to the data staging. Okay, so you can remember it as a kitchen or the data laundry. It is a temporary room. You see, it is a temporary room where you can store the data, to perform the magic ETL cleanup. I told you extract, transform, load. You are extracting the data, you are transforming here. So it is the kitchen of the factory. Okay, so what is happening? We are extracting the data and we are preparing it to load into the data warehouse by removing the inconsistency and duplicate records. So basically we are transforming it. We are scrubbing the data, we are removing the duplicate, fixing all the things, and then we are loading it into the main vault. We are loading it into the data storage area. That is the third component of data warehouse architecture, that is data storage area. So you see there is entire data storage area. It is a giant vault where the clean history is frozen. All right, the number 3, central repository where the historical data is permanently stored. So this is massive, this is non-volatile database that permanently freezes the entire history, and it is organized, and remember it is read only. Okay, and here the data is ready for heavy analysis. And now we move forward to the metadata. You see over here metadata. What does metadata? You see over here metadata. Okay, so what is this metadata? Metadata is the data about the data. For example, you create a document. What do you do in the front of document? You create an index so that you know what is included in the data, right? What is included in your document. So you will see from page 1 to 10 it is introduction. From page 10 to 20 you are talking about the components, you are talking about the essence. So what is happening? You are giving the instruction, you are giving the manual of what is included in the data. Okay, where a piece of data come from, what transformation has happened on the data, when it was loaded. So without metadata, you are completely lost in a data warehouse. How would you know that this is an external data, or how would you know that this came from CRM? How would you know that this was an Excel file data? Because if you store a metadata, if you store information about all the data inside the data warehouse, you can easily navigate through entire data warehouse. That is why we need metadata. Alright, it is very essential part of data warehouse. Then comes the management and control part. You see there is management and control in the yellow part. So what does management and control does? It is the automated boss that schedule task behind the scene. Okay. So what does the management area does? It is the background boss. It handles the scheduling, the security gates. Alright. So for example, an ETL, extract, transform, load part of the data crashes. So who will make sure that the whole system runs smoothly while everyone is asleep? It is the management control area. It is working as a supervisor. Alright, the machinery supervisor is the management and control area. Next comes the data mart. You see the very next 6 part is data mart. Alright, the green area you see the down of multidimensional data is the data mart. What is data mart? Why do we need data mart? Data mart are the smaller bit-sized data warehouse of specific team. Okay, first you were talking about storing the data in an integrated ways. Now you're talking about storing it differently. What does this mean? For example, there is a data warehouse of a giant hypermarket. A regular finance analyst does not want to walk through the entire store just to buy milk, right? What will you do in that case? You will build a data mart. Data mart is a smaller version of data warehouse. What it does is it is specialized for a particular department. Okay, so you have a data warehouse where every data is stored. Then you create a small data mart for a specific department so that they can easily access the data and they don't have to go through entire millions of data to access their own data, right? That is why we create small data marts. So they are like mini departmental stores of the major hypermarket. Then comes the multi-dimensional data. You see in the orange there is multi-dimensional data. So multi-dimensional data is where we are organizing the data into 3D shape. okay, for ultra fast slicing. So we are creating cubes over here. You see cubes, it is a 3D shape, right? So the normal database is like flat file. Alright, flat, there are rows and columns. But the OLAP cube, which we'll talk about later, just like a Rubik's cube you ever did. So OLAP cube takes the data, turns it into multi-dimensional Rubik cube. You can instantly twist it and turn it and view where the sale happened, in which product, in which region, and simultaneously you are doing it in milliseconds, and it takes the analysis very fast. So that is why we have multi-dimensional databases as well. And then lastly, there is information delivery tools. These tools provide user access to data warehouse data. All right, so information delivery tool, you can see at the last we have information delivery. Here you can finally have the front end, right? So executives don't want to see what is happening at the back end. They want beautiful Power BI dashboards, like I told you. So this component converts the raw backend storage into the real world business insight. That is why we need information delivery tools. Now let's zoom on a highly scoring subtopic, data marts. As we have already discussed from our definition, a data mart is a smaller, specialized version of a warehouse built on a single department. So let's look at the three types of data marts. Okay, so data mart, smaller and specialized version, and it is a subset of the data focused on specific requirements. Like we can have different data mart for sales, finance, marketing, and related areas in a specific company. So there can be a warehouse, and then there can be specific department marts, right? So let's discuss the three types of data mart. First comes the dependent data mart. So in this setup, you see the warehouse, the data warehouse is built first, right? So and later on there are data marts built on that data warehouse. All right, for example, there's a company that already have a massive centralized data warehouse, and the sales department simply plugs that central vault and copy all the sales rows into their own mini mart. So it is completely dependent on the big warehouse. So the big win in this is that it guarantees complete data consistency across entire company, because everyone sees the exact same version of the truth, because everyone is using the same data warehouse to extract the data, right? Now comes the second type, that is independent data mart. So in independent data mart, the data is directly created from the operational systems. So what is happening? For example, imagine there is a marketing team in your company, and that marketing team needs the analytics right now, that what is happening in our marketing trend. All right, but your company does not have a central data warehouse yet. They are creating, but it's not ready yet, and you all also have a tight budget. So in that scenario, what the marketing team does is they pull data directly from their own survey sheets and social media apps to build their own data puddle. They create their own data mart. So this is the independent data mart. So they are taking the data from the external sources and they are creating their own data marts. That is the independent. Whereas the third type of data mart is the hybrid data mart. It is the all-in-one transformer. So in this type, what happens? It combines the data from the centralized corporate warehouse plus it transforms from the raw data that is external. So imagine a finance mart that pulls the internal revenue numbers from the main corporate data warehouse, right? From the main data house, but also streams the real-time data from external, from live stock market. Okay, so what is happening? You are taking the live stock market data from internet, that is the external sources, and also from the internal data warehouse. and you are combining these two and you're creating your own personalized data mart. All right, so what happens, it gives the department ultimate analytic, that is flexibility. You're getting data from two types of the sources and you're storing it in your own data mart. So imagine your analytics would be next level. So these are the three types of data mart that you should know. Then we'll discuss about the tabular difference that exists between the data warehouse and the data mart. So we already know this, but we'll have a quick revision of what is the difference between them. All right, so the data warehouse we already know. Please revise. It is the centralized repository storing what? The enterprise wise integrated data. Whereas data mart is the smaller, you can always use the word subset. Remember, it's the keyword, subset of the data focused on the specific department. We cover the organization in the data warehouse, where we are only covering the single department, and the size of data warehouse is very large, and data mart is of course smaller in size. There are multiple organizational sources for data warehouse, and the departmental sources for data mart is limited. All right, and it also varies on the types of data mart. And the purpose of data warehouse we know, to make the strategic decision making, whereas here in data mart we have the department specific analysis, because the data mart are department oriented. So there is high implementation cost for data warehouse, but data mart can be set up in lower cost as well. Remember, I gave the example of the marketing team. So what they did, the cost was, the budget was tight, so they immediately created their own data mart, which costed them very few, right? And development time is longer for data warehouse, whereas data mart can be created very easily and very fast. And it can be slow sometimes due to large data set. And data mart, since it contains only the department specific data, it is very fast and efficient. I hope you understood the difference between data warehouse and data mart. All right, Padhai Logic family, let's talk about the absolute backbone of data warehouse, that is the ETL process. So as we all know, ETL stands for extract, transform and load. All right, let's quickly move on and discuss the three phases of ETL. So ETL is an important process. As I told, it is a backbone and it is responsible for collecting the data from multiple resources, cleaning and integrating it, and loading it into the data warehouse. So all the process that is very essential for data to become eligible for analytics, it is performed by ETL. So you see, it converts the raw data into meaningful information. So there are three steps. The very first step is the ETL, is the extract. E stands for extract. So what we are doing here, we are grabbing the data from completely different messy sources, right? And the objective is to retrieve the data, to minimize the impact on operational system, and to capture the accurate and complete data, right? Now you see, there are two types of extraction strategies. First is the full extraction. What happens, we copy the entire source database every single time. So whenever, for example, you have a grocery store, so you are copying that data every day. So for example, there was 10 lakh records yesterday, 5 lakhs added today, then 5 lakhs added like day before yesterday. So what is happening, you are plussing that data and you are adding every time. Whenever you are uploading the data, you are again and again capturing the entire source. So this full extraction is simple, but it takes up forever and it eats up a lot of storage. That is why we have the another type of data extraction technique, that is incremental extraction. So what is happening, we are only capturing the new or added or modified data. So there were 15 lakh records till yesterday, today there were 2 lakhs. So we will only upload the 2 lakhs record which were added today. So this is the incremental extraction. So it is like just today's fresh sales receipts, right? So this is very fast method and it requires smart tracking tools as well. Alright, the second phase is the transform. Once the data collected, what you do with the data, right? So phase 2 is transform, and this is where 80% of the engineering work happens. This is the ultimate data laundry. So the raw data which is collected in the extract method, it is filthy, okay, and the transformation scrubs and cleans it. And there are few techniques which are used for this thing. So there is data cleaning. All right, so data cleaning removes all the duplicate, all the inconsistency, all the missing values, right? So it is very important to do this so that our data is not producing inaccurate insights later on. Then we have data standardization. So like I told you that few apps might have gender with M, and might finance department might be using it as 0 or 1, some might be using it male and female. All right, so what is happening, there is no common format, so you need to standardize those things, right? So this happens in the transformation phase where you are standardizing. Then you are also doing data integration. You are collecting, combining from multiple sources in one unified structure, right? And then you are doing data filtering, when unnecessary data is removed. For example, there is data which is not even required in the analysis, you are just processing it, it is just eating up the storage, right? So it is very important to remove all the irrelevant data. Then comes the data aggregation, where we are summarizing the data to save space. So instead of keeping 50,000 hourly receipts, we aggregate them into one clean total daily sales record, where we are summing it and just keeping that number. Alright, then we also have data splitting and merging. In this, we are dividing such fields. For example, there is a column called full name, alright, and we divide it into first name and last name, alright, or we are merging separate address columns into single line. So this merging and data splitting is very crucial, and it helps a lot when we are doing deeper drill down analysis. We also have data validation, which ensure that data accuracy and correctness, alright, that all the values are valid. And we also have data conversion, which converts the data type and format. So sometimes it happens the format changes automatically when we are loading it, so we need to ensure that the data format is right, the text is in text, the numbers are in numbers. Sometimes numbers are converted into text, which further act as a barricade for our analysis. So we need to ensure that our data is on the exact type which our values are of. Alright, so now we'll turn forward and discuss our last and the most important phase, that is the load phase. So this takes our polished, clean data and writes it permanently into the warehouse storage disks. Okay, so you see we have it just takes the data into the data warehouse, okay, and it is the final stage of ETL. So what are the types of loading? You see there are three styles. First is initial load. So initial load is where the entire data warehouse is loaded, right? For example, populating an empty data warehouse for the first time. So you build the data warehouse and you're loading it. So the first time we are doing the initial load, loading entire data. And then there is another type of load like incremental load. So what you are doing, only periodic or daily updates, you are just loading those. And then there is full refresh load, where what you are doing, you are wiping the data warehouse slate clean, and then you are replacing the entire table periodically. Alright, so this was the ETL process, where we are doing the three important phases. So ETL takes the chaotic data and it multi-format the data, purifies them, and then creates a highly reliable pool of truth for the company decision maker. I hope you understood the process of ETL. So the most important thing is to understand that how do we actually come to a conclusion of making a data warehouse. So it is very important to understand that the very first step in every company or every organization is to define the business requirement. What do our business want? Why do it want it? Right? So asking these questions and developing the goal is understanding the business goal and the user requirement is actually the concept called requirement definition. So we are first defining what our requirements are, what the goals are, and how do we are supposed to meet those goals. So in defining the business requirement, we are understanding what information user needs, how they want to analyze the data, what business processes are important, and how dimension and measurements are required for decision making. Once we have created this requirement documentation, then we further move on the process of data collection, transformation, load, and the creation of the particular data warehouse. And then we create the strategic analysis and decisions. So the very core is the requirement definition. So you should know this particular concept. And then the next up, the very incredible conceptual question, that how do we actually design a data warehouse based on the business requirement, right? So what do we actually do? How do we collect the data for a company? So for that we have data gathering methods, right? So there is various method used to gather the data. First is the interview. So interview is the face-to-face chat with the top executives to isolate the high-level strategic interactions. All right, and then we have questionnaires and surveys. So questionnaires or surveys are best when you have thousands of people or thousands of places where you need to have quick and quantitative feedback on a report usage. So we use interviews and surveys in that question. So there are predefined questions which we use on everyone. So the advantages is that it saves time, it collects the information from many users, and it is easy to analyze the response. Then we have JAD sessions. So these are basically brainstorming sessions in which all the concerned people like developers, managers, finance team come in a one room and they hammer out conflicts and finalize the design collaboratively. Okay, and it speeds up the requirement gathering because it removes the misunderstanding. Everyone is in one room, so they can able to analyze quickly, resolve the conflicts. Then we also have the observation methods. In this we are watching the particular people who are concerned. So we are analyzing the user, how they daily work, and it helps to identify the actual business processes. It helps to identify the patterns, the workflow. All right, then we have the prototyping. Then we have the document analysis. So here we are studying the existing organizational documents. So sometimes it is very important to understand the historical pattern which already existed and has been resolved, right? So sometimes we are able to understand and collect the data from the historical existing understandings. And then there is prototyping, building the dummy dashboard, like building something primarily, like we create a version 1.1 and 0 or 0.1, 0.2, and we are creating the versions, and then we are using the user review, that how they suggest the improvements and if there is something we need to refine in our requirement. So this is the way in which the requirement gathering methods work. So let's quickly discuss about our ultimate destination of BI, that is business intelligence and data warehousing. So you know that Data Warehousing Institute, it describes and it compares BI as a data refinery. So what does that mean? That raw data is completely useless until it is refined into strategic value, until we are creating various graphs and various visualization to understand what the data is trying to tell, what story our data holds. So that is why it is very important to understand how BI and data warehouse work collaboratively. So BI, business intelligence, refers to the technology, tools and application that is used for collecting, integrating, storing, analyzing and presenting the data for better decision making. So we cannot just utilize entire data set in a data warehouse and just give it to the stakeholders to just have a look. What we do is we use the interactive tools to visualize the data, so that according to that analysis we are able to make the decisions. So that is why BI plays a very important role. So in BI there are two major environments, right? First environment is data to information environment. So the goal of this environment is to take the raw, messy transaction records and turn them into structured and accessible information, right? So what is happening? This is powered entirely by the data warehouse and ETL pipeline. So it tracks the data, it extracts the data from separate apps, and then the inconsistencies are removed and it is stored as a clean unified baseline, right? So it answers the question that what data do we had, and is it accurate? So data to information environment is just creating the data, cleaning it and just asking this question that is it accurate to have such kind of data, right? And then comes the second environment, that is information to knowledge environment. Now what we are doing, we take the clean stored information and turned it into actionable predictive knowledge, the next step, right? So this is powered by analytics, this is powered by interactive dashboards that we are talking about. So what is happening in this environment, we are not just looking at the past data rows. This layer find the hidden correlations, hidden patterns, right? So it highlights that why there was unexpected drops in the sale in particular region, or it also helps to predict the future market shifts, and it answers the question, so what does this mean for our business strategy, right? It answers what steps should be taken according to this analysis. All right, so these are the two environments you see in this diagram. There is this environment in which the operational system, we extract the data, we created in information, and then when we produce analytics, it is completely different environment in which we are generating the knowledge, we are generating the insight. So this is how we use data warehouse in BI and how they both work collaboratively to produce the effective insights for the organization. Now let's look at a new super cool concept that helps the developers to talk to the business managers without talking in the technical terms. So this concept is called information packages. So think about it as a structured matrix sheet that helps out exactly what a business department needs to track before you write a single code as an SQL developer or any developer. So information package is a representation of data requirements, right? So when we are designing a data warehouse, it is very crucial to add on with the business managers of the particular department, right? But the business managers might not have the technical knowledge of how the data warehouse is produced. Therefore we need a particular requirement document which helps to bridge the gap between the developer and the business manager. That is what the information packages does. So it is a technique that used to identify the business subject, where we define all these things and then we take it and present it to the user. It is in a simple and structured format. Okay, so like I said, it helps to bridge the gap between the technical developers, and it defines the reporting requirement, it identifies the important business measures, and it also provides the high level view of the business analysis. Okay, so what is included in an information package? Like you can see in this diagram, let's have a closer look. Okay, I hope it is visible. So what you see in this, we have a business subject area. It is, I'm really sorry, it is a little cut from the top. So this is the business subject area. So we just write over here what is the concerning department, what is the concerning area, right? So for example, here it is hotel occupancy. Then there are the dimensions. You see, this part is the dimension. It is the main column headers. So we have time, we have the hotel name, we have the room type, right? And then there is the aggregation level. So what is the hierarchy, like listed? So these are the listed directly beneath the headers, you see. And here we are showing that how deep the data can be drilled down. So in the time dimension, we have year, then year is divided into quarter, and then we have months, then we have date, then we have day of a week, day of a month, and then holiday flag. So these are the hierarchy of data which will be added in the dimension, right? And then you can clearly see in the last we have this this area of facts, right? This facts is where we are actually clearly listing out the matrices that will be computed, means the calculated fields from this data. So occupied rooms, we will calculate this, right? How many number of rooms were occupied by summing up the vacancy. And we have vacant room, we have unavailable room, number of occupants, revenue. So all these facts, all these measures would be calculated based on these dimensions. And this is the document which is provided to the business managers to know if this is what they want to analyze. So the business manager decides that yes, this is what I actually want to capture for my department. And then the database developer can take this exact package and instantly build a clean schema from it. And that, my friends, officially bring us to the end of our foundational core topics of Unit 1. Now, before we transition into highly scoring Unit 2, let's do a quick active recall pulse check. I want you to pause this video right now and try to answer these core questions out loud or scribble them in your notebook. So I want to ask, can you sketch the 3-tier architecture from your memory? Can you tell all the 8 components of the data warehouse? Can you tell the features of data warehouse? Can you tell the ETL process in detail? And if you can answer those, congratulations, my friend. And if you need a quick review, jump back and look for the video again. Otherwise, smash the like button, stretch your arms, and let's dive into the Unit 2.